Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. Do you hear this? Do you hear that?
Yeah, I sure do.
Did you hear that? That is just garbage water. It's fizzy. It's
my favorite kind.
It's fizzy water. You know, it's my favorite soda stream water because 'tis the season. It's now finally hot here, but it's unflavored. You know, usually I sweeten it up a little bit, make myself a little soda, but I have too much sweet in my life. I found this is my new thing. My raison d'etre is I need to stop craving the sweet again. It's been very troublesome. So I'm trying to cut the sweet where I can, and it's created in me not a very pleasant individual.
Some might say a monster.
Yeah, I was just going to say surly, but monster works too. If you ask my kids and family, I feel like I'm quitting smoking or something more serious. And it's making me surly. And it's all about this sugar. It's like this alien lives in your body, man. And I got it bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It is crazy. How you doing? You sound terrible.
I'm a little under the weather, slightly. Yeah, just kind of got the crud, the summertime crud.
You're still going to be able to pull it together tonight, right? You're going to be able to, bring your A game.
I might doze off here or there, but other than that, I'll be good to go.
That's all right. I'll carry it. There
you go.
Just put you over my back.
Yeah, just try to hit mute on my channel if you start hearing the snoring.
Duly noted. Consider yourself mute head. Andy, do we have any old business?
We got a few little things.
We do?
Yeah,
I
first
love
of all,
old business.
I know. It's always exciting. First of all, our wonderful friend of the show, Ben Lott, did comment on Thin Man. He hasn't quite caught up to King's Row yet, so maybe next time he'll have a King's Row comment for us. But for Thin Man, he seemed to like it, as he said. It connected with him a lot more than it did with us. Which I guess he really enjoys kind of the old school comedy, the old fashioned style of witty banter. He really enjoyed quality comedy, and he loved it.
I love that he loved it.
I will say, as I said on the show, I may not have fallen completely in love with the film itself, but I did completely love Nick and Nora Charles, and actually Just today, Pete, the next in the series arrived at my doorstep via Netflix.
Oh, excellent.
And yes, it's ahead of Predestination.
Oh, man. Andy, do you know what? Some things you just don't say.
I know.
You have it out loud. You don't even say it. I don't need to know that. Now I remember why I'm so mad at you. I was fine. Fine.
Oh, dear.
Fine.
There I go. Open mouth, insert foot.
Insert something.
Mean.
I am with you. I also adore Nick and Nora, even though, like you, it didn't quite connect with film. I find myself, I parade around and ask people to call me Nick Charles. That's how
does that go for you?
Not as well as you'd expect, or maybe about as well as you'd expect.
Yeah, probably.
So I'm glad. I also feel like I connect with that old school humor, even if the film is sort of a wash for me. So I love that, and he's not even giving us a score anymore, Ben Blott. So now it's just like he needs a new segment. He needs like his own graphic. He needs like an intro theme. We get Tommy to sing him a little acapella. So just call it the Blot Spot.
The Blot Spot. I like it.
Me too.
It can be just a little spot on our site.
Do you know what I noticed in the Flick Charters group over at the Facebook? You've heard of this.
I have heard.
Do you notice we're getting called out as like in not in a tone of like, hey, I'm so glad I watched this movie, but yes, I'm watching this because I mistakenly committed to watching all the movies of the film board.
Yes, he wasn't so much a fan of the Hobbit films.
Nope. Rightly so. There was some trouble.
I guess I'm going to have to start calling the Hobbit films guilty pleasures. I
think that would be fair. But it's too soon to call them. So for the next, I think there's a moratorium. You got to wait at least 15 years before you can call them. So at 15 years, you can call the Hobbit as a guilty pleasure.
So for the 15 years leading up to that, what do I call them? Just bad taste?
No, they can still be guilty pleasures. We just can't discuss them on the show.
Oh, I see.
But actually, you're right. Let's stick with
right.
Yours was better. Bad taste. What else do we have? Do we have any other feedback?
Yes, we had a listener over on Twitter, Brendan Roberts, who commented listening to the Thin Man episode and have to say, yes, you should watch Mr. Roberts. So happy I share my name with a good film. As our listeners may remember, we did bring up The Thin Man, or we did bring up Mr. Roberts, the film, because, of course, William Powell is also in Mr. Roberts, and neither of us have seen it. So it's definitely one that I've now added to my queue, although Predestination is before it, Pete.
Well, that's something.
Is that a redemption
modest consolation. And a big shout out to Australia, because that's where Brendan Roberts is from. Awesome to check in. Brendan, thanks so much, man.
Indeed.
All right. I think maybe we should tell the people where we're from.
Where are we from?
Hey, everybody, this is The Next Reel, and I'm Pete Wright, and that there's Andy Nelson.
Hello.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, the third in our series in the black and white work of cinematographer James Wong Howe with Alexander Mackendrick's 1957 film, Sweet Smell of Success. Before we get into that, you should definitely learn more about us at thenextreel.com, subscribe to the show on iTunes, or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you're the kind of person who lobs libel for loot, then you're also the kind of person who should head over to Instagram.com/thenextreel and play The Next Reel's Instagram, #PonyPrize, #GuessTheMovieChallenge. Andy, how did we do against the PR scum this week?
Well, the PR scum were out to get us this week. They
That's not good.
It took no time. In fact, I will go so far as to say 2 images that, for me, are like kind of generic images that are meant to kind of lead people down lots of different paths. Well, it only took to that second image for one of our keen-eyed folk to catch the film. And yes, it was the what would you call it? Box office disaster? I don't know if it's a disaster, but it was a box office experiment that didn't work, called Nick of Time, a real-time thriller with Johnny Depp. And L.J. Fuller clearly knew what the film was and was able to nail it. Second image in, a picture of an Amtrak train. He knew exactly what was going on there. So congratulations to L.J. Fuller. You are now entered to win the 2015 Pony Prize.
Does that say more about L.J. than he knew what that movie was, or the movie? It was not a good movie. It was not a good movie.
Yeah, I never bothered with that one.
That's because it was not a good movie.
That's right.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations, LJ. Welcome to the club.
And I do love that good old Stephen Smart had kind of a little time theme, if people hadn't been paying attention. A few time travel movies followed up by this Nick of Time, just having time in the title.
I love it. That's brilliant.
Very clever.
Is that the end of our time series now, of his time series? Or
I
are we
believe
moving
so.
on to some other?
I think he kind of did in a trilogy of Predestination, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, The Time Machine, and then Nick of Time.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So come back. This coming week starts again on Friday.
Yes, it does.
Awesome. And now, Andy, it's time. Let's do trailers. My trailer is called The Martian, a.k.a. Sending Matt Damon Back into Space. And that guy getting stuck on planets, huh? Am I right?
I know. It's like Interstellar all over again.
Exactly. So here we go. It's based on the book by Andy Weir. Have you read the book?
I have not. But from comments of people who've seen the trailer, they say it looks pretty faithful.
That is my understanding as well. I am not finished with the book, but it is one that is high on my list as soon as we get through graduation weekend. A lot of shoots graduation weekend, but I'm about 2 hours into it in Audible, and I'm liking it so far. In fact, I'm liking it so much that when I saw the initial Goodbye Aries promotional video, did you see that one?
I did not.
Okay, this was one where Matt Damon is on the ship and he's giving a tour and introducing all the characters. You know, here's Special Mission Specialist and here's the captain, and they have a little, you know, it's the thing you expect from NASA astronauts in space, right? And I did not like that. I did not resonate with that at all. And so I thought, wow, that's it. Is that the trailer? And then I saw the real trailer, and now I'm much more excited about it.
So it was not as good as Guy Pearce's TED Talk for the Prometheus lead up.
It was not as good as that, I would say. But the trailer looks, to me, quite good. Obviously, this comes from director Ridley Scott, writer Drew Goddard, and it stars a lot of people that look really good in this movie together. Kate Mara, Jessica Chastain, Kristen Wiig, obviously Matt Damon, Mackenzie Davis, Sean Bean, Sebastian Stan, Winter Soldier, what? Donald Glover, Jeff Daniels, Michael Pena, Chewie Ejiofor, Axel Henny, Naomi Scott, and even more people than that. But those are the people that I recognize. And so it looks like a highly faithful adaptation of Andy Weir's book, The Martian. And man, when he looks up and says, I need to grow 4 years of food in a capsule that's designed to last for 30 days, I need to science the out of this place, right? That got me going. I was pretty excited about it. What'd you think?
I'm gonna give it a hell yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
It looks just absolutely fantastic. Ridley Scott has kind of been very hit or miss for me in the last decade or so, and this, just from the trailer, looks like a strong hit.
I think so too. And so, we'll see. This may be his big chance to go to space and have us actually want to come with him. So this one comes out November 25th. I think I can faithfully say this will be my birthday movie this year.
Ooh.
One of plenty.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm. What's yours?
Mine is the new Steven Spielberg film, Bridge of Spies. And of course, my absolute favorite, Tom Hanks, is in it. It's a really interesting looking Cold War thriller about kind of an element of the Cold War that I guess I just really knew nothing about. The fact that the CIA had captured a Russian pilot, captured a Russian spy, and the Russians had captured an American pilot. And the CIA hires this American lawyer to kind of be their go-between to try to negotiate everything and get their spy or get their pilot back. And while also dealing with this whole idea of how do we treat our prisoners? All the Americans are screaming, kill this guy, and he's trying to defend him, saying we can't just kill him. We have to show these guys that we are better than that. It looks really strong, and one of the other reasons I picked this trailer, obviously the main one is just because Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg, but as some of our listeners may know, we're going to be talking about Jurassic World this weekend on our film board, and so this past weekend I went through the Jurassic Park trilogy, and I watched the first 3 films just to kind of get myself all psyched up for Jurassic World. And watching those 2 Steven Spielberg films, the first and the second one, back to back, reminded me of the good and the bad of Steven Spielberg.
Do tell. I don't want to belabor this one any more than we have to, but I'm curious if you could summarize the good and the bad in a single point each.
Well, I think the single point is Jurassic World good, Lost World, Jurassic Park 2 bad. I don't think that Spielberg, my understanding is he wanted to make Jurassic or Lost World because he was so disappointed at what happened to Jaws 2. But I think he ended up doing the exact same thing that happened to Jaws 2, and it's just now it has a Steven Spielberg name attached to it. Not very good film. A lot of script problems, just a messy thing. But he knows how to put a good story together, and even the problems with Jurassic Park 2 still highlight some of the great moments that Spielberg has as far as directing. It still had some great tense scenes, some good character moments, some great camera work. And he definitely has kind of shifted into a lot more serious sorts of storytelling in this particular point in his career. This looks more in line with something like Munich, perhaps, or Lincoln. And I am just really banking on the fact that this is going to be kind of in the Jurassic Park caliber and not in the Lost World caliber of projects that he makes.
Well, here's hoping. It's already getting some snarky reviews so far.
Is it really? I hadn't heard that.
Well, that's the word. I'm trying not to read them, but people are telling me. This is a man on the street kind of reportage here. I'm hearing people telling me, don't read the reviews because, yeah.
Well, the Coen brothers are two of the three writers on this, and that's another reason to be excited.
I am excited. I'm excited. Don't kill the messenger, man.
You're just telling me. There are people
who are being snarky about this movie already.
I won't say who they are, but they're out there.
They're out there, and they may be closer than you think.
Oh, wow. This movie opens October 16th.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
Hey, Pete?
Yes, Andy?
You sound happy. Why should you be happy when I am not?
Burt Lancaster as J.J. Hunsaker, world-famed columnist whose gossip is gospel to 60 million readers. Tony Curtis as Sidney Falco, the kid who had ideas about taking over.
But we happen to know I'm your star pupil, because I reflect back to you your own talent.
I'd hate to take a bite of you. You're a cookie full of arsenic.
Don't turn your back on him. You might find a knife in it. This is their story, and that of the big shots and big names who worship the sweet smell of success. Along Broadway, throughout Hollywood, down Wall Street, on Capitol Hill, sweet smell of success.
We're friends, Harvey. We go as far back as when you were a fresh kid congressman, don't we?
Why is it that everything you say sounds like a threat?
Maybe it's a mannerism, because I don't threaten friends. But why furnish your enemies with ammunition? And here you are, out in the open, where any hep person knows that this one is toting that one around for you.
Sidney is a great salesman. He'd sell anything to get there. Just ask his girl.
Sidney, I don't do this sort of thing.
What sort of thing?
This sort of thing.
You need him for a favor, don't you? Well, so do I. I need his column tonight.
All you think about is yourself and your column. You see yourself as some sort of a national glory.
But to me, and lots of people like me, your slimy scandal and your phony patriotics, to me, Mr. Hunsaker, you're a national disgrace.
Burt Lancaster as the almighty J.J. Hunsaker. Tony Curtis as his man of all dirty work. Introducing Susan Harrison and the Chico Hamilton Quintet.
Explain.
Why you put your hands on my sister.
Jake, I didn't do anything. Stop!
It's not even the, and this catches me all the time. It's just sweet smell of success. There's no the.
I hear you on that one, Pete.
Is that frustrating to you? It is enormously frustrating to me.
It's just strange.
It's super strange.
I always expect there to be a the there.
Because it's like they're telling me, go ahead and sweet smell of success. Like it's telling me to do something. It's telling me wrong. It's like, it's wrong. It's wrong. It doesn't really matter because the movie is, man, I had a kicking good time with this movie. Came out in 1957, directed by our friend of the show, we're going to call him, Alexander Mackendrick.
Sandy, Sandy
Mackendrick, right? Screenplay written by Clifford Odets and Ernest Lehman, based on the book by Ernest Lehman. Stars, man, a fantastic performance in my book by Burt Lancaster and Tony Curtis, along with just a wonderful cast filling out Susan Harrison, Martin Milner, Jeff Donnell, Sam Levine. We'll talk about the cast as it fills out, but it was I had a wonderful time with this film, talking about an unethical Broadway columnist and his partner in crime, Sidney Falco, the press agent, PR flack, trying to break up Hunsaker's sister's romance with a guitarist. And it is like the story of, it's like the worst rendition of High School Musical, but told on the dirty, dirty streets of New York. It's like, don't you get that? I mean, I walked away from this thinking, wow, this is such a lame story. A guy wants another guy to stop dating his sister. That's the whole thing is based on that.
It really is. When you look at just what the story is, it is really kind of underwhelming.
It's so dumb. And yet...
Right. I feel like there should be something along the lines of Ace in the Hole, some big message about these types of people in this film. But it's not. It's really just about these types of people and these ridiculous machinations that they go through to get their way. And in the end, bring them down. And
that, I think, is a real testament to the film because it succeeds really exclusively on dialogue and character because the story is so dumb. And it's not like the story gets lost. The story's definitely still there. You have to get through the story. But I just so adore watching the interaction between Lancaster and Curtis on screen. I just think it is fantastic. Tony Curtis as this just hungry dog on the street is just delicious to me every time he's on screen.
Yes, I can't remember where I read this, but somebody referred to him as a fly. He's always flitting about. He hardly ever stops. In fact, it might have been something saying that the director told him to kind of think this way. I just can't quite remember. But basically, that is exactly what he is. He is this scavenging, hungry fly, always buzzing about the fresh kill almost. And he won't sit down. If you watch him, he hardly ever stops moving. And it's fascinating to watch him. And it's painful to watch how he deals with his relationships, particularly the women in the film who like him, and how hateful he ends up being to them, almost because he knows he is a low, low person. And the fact that there are these two women in the film who end up liking him, he knows that there should be no reason for people to like him, and it's almost like he is demeaning them because he's hating himself, and it's another way to make himself hate what he's doing even more.
Oh, that's great. You're right. This is a film that celebrates self-loathing at a really deep level. Let's say, last week I felt like we gave short shrift a little bit to James Wong Howe. Can we start with that?
Yeah,
start with cinematography.
Great.
Let's do that. What was your impression of the cinematography of this film?
Well, James Wong Howe talked to Mackendrick at the beginning of this project, and really, I think they both agreed that in order to really make this story work, it really needs to feel like it's actually living in the city. It couldn't feel like a studio picture with fake New York street sets. It needed to feel like they were actually there. And that was a huge, huge, huge thing that they decided early on that I think is critical to the way the film feels and looks. The studio, actually, or I shouldn't say the studio, this was produced by Lancaster and his two producing partners, Hecht and Hill, who had their own kind of independent production company. This was right at the end of the studio era, and these three guys were basically getting this movie made. They funded a trip for Mackendrick and Howe to go to New York and really just kind of go around and find the world of this film. And I think a lot of what we end up seeing on the film came out of that initial trip. You've got this just beautiful, beautiful dark play of the city at night. I mean, they filmed the vast majority of all the street stuff, I think, from midnight to 6 a.m., and you can really feel that. You can feel just this darkness to everything. Everything is thriving on all of these buzzing lights all around them. And that was critical to finding this story, which does feel very noirish. This is probably, of the films that we're talking about for James Wong Howe in this series, the most noirish of the four of them. You've got some great low angles of these characters. You've got just dark shadows. Everything is just kind of drenched. It almost feels like wrapped in this like dark black shadowy mass. And I think that creating that world was critical for this film.
I think so too. That was one of the things that I noticed in particular was the black point on this film was deep black. It was you didn't get a sense that this was a sort of grayscale film. You watch this film and it is beautifully high contrast. The other thing that we talked about that I sort of missed last week was this week was the deep focus, the wonderful. There's some wonderful shots where you have multiple characters on screen and some just crystal clear focus up and down the focal range. And I thought that was a really super useful in this case when it really served the dramatic arc of the story. I mean, using that focus technique puts us in a better perspective of the relationship, particularly between Lancaster and Curtis, or Hunsaker and Falco. Depending on where they are on the screen, you really get to understand better what the how the power ratio is distributed between them. And I thought that worked really well.
I think that's absolutely true. I think this film gets most of its praise, at least when I generally hear praise for this film, it is because of the just brilliant dialogue that runs from beginning to end. It's nonstop, fantastic dialogue, mostly by Odets, although I think Lehman has some of the dialogue, but I think most of the dialogue that we all love so much in this film came from Odets. But this film doesn't get enough praise, I think, for the cinematography and the look of it and just this world that they've created. The deep focus, I think, is an incredible point, Pete, and paired with that is knowing how to move the camera and when to move it and where to move it. And I mean, obviously that's paired with Howe and Mackendrick finding all the right points. But you're right. I think rewatching the end bit where Falco has rescued Hunsaker's sister from jumping off of the balcony, and he has her in her room, and he opens the door like he's going to leave, and then he goes and closes the sliding door to the balcony, and the camera pans over, and when the camera pans back, we see through the door that he had opened into the front room, all the way across, we see that JJ has actually now come in, and you see him in the back, and of course Falco doesn't realize that as he's dealing with the sister up in the foreground. Seeing shots like that, where you've got this amazing depth of field, there's so much storytelling going on all across the frame when you see things like that, and working so well with his cinematographer, Mackendrick was able to tell a story that is just constantly alive.
I think so, and I think of the three films we've talked about so far, this one is the one that really stands out to me as just a visual ballet. I mean, it was just such a treat to watch, even with the sound off. You can get such a sense of where these characters are in relation to one another that I just found it a real treat. It's such a highlight of Howe's career, I think.
Absolutely, it's completely. I think one of the pinnacles of his wonderful career that he had.
Truly. You mentioned Clifford Odets. What do we know of Clifford Odets as one of those screenwriters?
He's, I believe, primarily was a playwright, and before all of this, and he came on because Ernest Lehman, who had written the, I don't know if you call it a short story, the novella, really. He had written a kind of a short basically that was in a magazine that I believe it was called. It was about J.J. Hunsaker, and it was called Hunsaker Fights the World. That was the kind of foundation for this, and so Ernest Lehman was brought on to write the script. He had such a hard time dealing with Burt Lancaster, who, as I said, was one of the producers on the project and starring in it. Burt Lancaster, I guess, is notoriously very hot-headed and hard to work with, and it just kind of Lehman ended up having kind of I don't know if he had a breakdown or just got really ill from his time here, so he left the project, and Mackendrick thought that Odets would be a great person to bring on board to kind of fix the script. They had a short amount of time in which to do it, and so Odets said that he could, and they brought Odets on to do it. It took longer than Odets said it took, I think, like 4 weeks for him to do it as opposed to 2 weeks, something like that. So he actually had to write the script on set while they were working. And so sometimes they had, they got the pages like an hour before they had to go shoot it. So it was very, very stressful for the filmmakers. But Mackendrick could tell, reading the dialogue that Odets was giving to him, that he was making it so much better. It wasn't that he was changing Lehman's story drastically. The story pretty much stayed the same. It's just that he actually found ways to build more into the scenes. So there was a lot more subtext going on. And you get so much of that from this dialogue that you hear as they're speaking, this just snappy dialogue. Odets...
He has a great... I'm just clicking around Clifford Odets right now, and he's got a great quote. Sex, the poor man's polo.
Nice.
It feels like it's right out of Hunsaker. That's good.
It totally does. It totally does. He was one of the people who's called before HUAC, the House Committee on Un-American Activities, or House Un-American Activities Committee, I guess, as people more often call it. He was, I think that he ended up naming names.
He did. He was called in 1952, which I thought was really interesting because, that puts us within striking distance of this film. And I find it fascinating that here's a guy who continues to be prolific in Hollywood after that kind of an event. He showed up as a friendly witness after naming names. And this was after he had first joined the Communist Party, 2 decades earlier. But only was in there for a few months and disavowed the party and then came out as a witness. So if you want to get a picture of who this guy is, think of Barton Fink, because apparently it is Odets who served as the inspiration for that character. So you can kind of imagine Barton Fink going before the House Un-American Affairs Activities Committee and that you get a picture for what it was like in 1952.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and this, Lancaster was very much against all of that. And I believe there were a few other people involved in this project who they had named names, and he brought them on, or they had, he was one of the people who was like trying to help people get out of the whole situation, as I recall.
You mean Odets or Lancaster?
Lancaster.
Oh, that part I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
But I know is that it was interesting that Odets himself was never, he never got blacklisted in a blacklist-heavy time. He
didn't. What happened was he and Elia Kazan named each other, I believe. And so somehow he avoided blacklisting because he named somebody, even though it kind of confused everybody, the fact that he named people, but he was also named. And I think what happened was he wasn't blacklisted, but he said that he was tormented by public reaction to his testimony until his death in 1963.
I have no doubt that is true.
Yeah.
Still, witty with a pen.
Brilliant with a pen. Yeah. It's, the stuff that he wrote, the wonderful allusions to food that come up as these people refer to each other. You're a cookie with arsenic. I would hate to take a bite of you, or whatever. The wonderful allusions to violence is just like you want to see a man run a race with no legs, and you just like these strange pictures of here's your head, weird little references like that, and then animals also. It's just like the way that he kind of builds all this into this script that feels so biting, so much more biting than some scripts that people would that are just full of just casual swearing and all of that. This actually feels really biting, and it's stylized, I guess, but you don't hear people ever talking this way, but it's done in a way where it actually feels real.
I think so too. It is an incredibly energetic script. It doesn't slow down ever. Every time someone opens their mouths, it's a quotable moment, and that makes it almost distracting to a point that I find it takes a couple of watchings just to keep up. I haven't seen either of Odets' directorial attempts. He did 1944's None But the Lonely Heart with Cary Grant. And he did, what was the other one that he did? The Story on Page One in 1959 with Rita Hayworth. So, he's working with a cast that, this is not a cast of sort of B-string actors to help out a writer who's trying to turn director. This is a significant effort. Have you seen either of his films?
I haven't seen either of those. The only other thing that I've seen anything of his really, I guess, is Hitchcock's Notorious, in which he was uncredited, having written the dialogue for some of the love scenes. And I can't remember enough about those to say one way or the other.
Well, he's just fascinating talent with language, and makes me really interested to explore more of his catalog. So, an interesting bit about Mackendrick is he was really nervous when he saw the script and how much dialogue was in there. And if you look at the other films that we've talked about on the show that Mackendrick has directed, Man in the White Suit and The Lady Killers, they're nowhere filled with this sort of dialogue, this much dialogue. This is overflowing with just rapid dialogue that these people had to get out. And understandably, Mackendrick was a little overwhelmed by it. And Odets told him, don't focus on the dialogue. When you're directing it, just look at what they are meaning, what the actions are. The dialogue will just come out, and as long as you're making sure that the actors, the intentions of what they're actually trying to get across, as long as that's coming through, then the dialogue is just going to be there to just fill in the gaps. And I think that was Mackendrick said that was one of the most helpful notes that he had. I should add, for those who don't check the show notes on this thing, if you go to thenextreel.com and check out the show notes on this, we do put, every time we can find it, we put a link to the script and trailer and the, various sundries about the film in the show notes. So check that out. The script for this one is we've got a working script, a link to a working script up there at Daily Script that is fascinating to read while watching the film. It's fascinating to see where the actors, move off of the dialogue that was cut, dialogue that was added. It's an energetic experience, to try to keep up, but it's really fun. And I did that this time around and really enjoyed it.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Who else is high on your list? Shall we talk?
Well, since we're talking crew, let's just mention Elmer Bernstein. The music in this is just powerful, and that kind of that night dark jazz that's going on through here, I think works so well for this world. It just has the brassiness of it just really hits home, I think.
It does. It is it certainly sets the tone of the time. I think when the film first opens, it's both that sort of dirty grit, but also very Broadway. It feels really appropriate to the streets. And, I wanted to ask you, there's a sequence, this is such a minor thing, nobody's going to care about this, but there's a sequence in there in the opening where they're throwing papers off the truck, and we're in the truck, and we've got a point of view from the inside the papers, and we're looking out on the street. Is that a process shot? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I didn't think so. I would have to go back and look at it, but I don't think any of the newspaper stuff were process shots, although I could be wrong on that. I know exactly the shot you're talking about because it struck me being inside that truck, and I didn't see it. It didn't have that processed feel, I guess. I don't know. I just need to look at it again.
It was weird because it was like, I don't know. I felt like I expected it to be handheld, but it's really a lockdown camera, and so you're moving with the sort of poor suspension of that truck.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit disarming when you watch it, and that sort of sets the tone for me for the rest of it. Anyway, to tie into the music, I think that's it's those sorts of sequences in the beginning where you see the montage of the the energy and the sort of rage of that midnight kind of overnight shift of distributing papers that really sets the tone for the whole film. I think it just works really well.
Interestingly, the jazz band Hamilton and Katz that Steve is a member of, the two songsmiths of that actual jazz band had actually written the score for the film before they decided that they wanted to have Elmer Bernstein do the score. So I mean, they still have some songs that they actually play in the context of the scenes, but I think that would be very interesting to hear. But I do think Bernstein's score is just perfect for the film.
Interestingly, it was Robert Vaughn who was originally slated to play Steve Dallas, but he was drafted.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah. I wonder, it would have been kind of a different film with Robert Vaughn. I thought, I really enjoy the sort of thuggish innocence of Steve Dallas. What's his name? Who played Steve Dallas?
Marty Milner.
Marty Milner, right.
Yeah.
I love his sort of innocence, and you get much more sort of suave sophistication of Robert Vaughn. I don't think you get that innocence. I think that would have been a different relationship to try and break up.
I agree. I think Milner was perfect for the role, and I really enjoy watching him. Interestingly, I suppose, he has actually plays in Mr. Roberts as a shore patrol officer. So there you go. Another tie to our conversation about that film.
On the list.
There you go.
I really liked the band. I had a good time. Anytime we were in that bar, I think the experience of being in the bar, the crowd in the bar, the intimacy up against the stage as these guys are playing, the freedom with which everybody sort of interacts with the band as they're playing was just a really unique kind of experience for me. I just loved kind of being a part of it. I really felt like I was in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, it makes me want to go back and watch some old Adam 12. Little Nick at Night.
There you go. He was also in Swiss Family Robinson, which is another element of my childhood, having watched that film many times.
Did you ever see Valley of the Dolls?
I didn't. That's one of those, I don't know if it's on my list of shame. I don't know if I can say that about that film, but I haven't seen it yet.
I think probably. I mean, I think you probably could be shamed that you didn't see that one. I mean, it's Patty Duke.
That's right.
Come on. Anyway, let's see. So we skipped over our main characters as we jumped to Steve Dallas, but we should talk about J.J. Hunsaker, Burt Lancaster's portrayal of Hunsaker. Burt Lancaster was great as the cantankerous older dude in this film.
He's alarmingly just powerful in his presence. It's it doesn't take much for Lancaster to get across incredible threats with just a look or just a short sentence. He is an incredibly powerful looming figure, and you can see why everybody is kind of afraid of this character. He doesn't really have friends. He only has people who kowtow to him and who really just feel the need to do whatever he wants them to do just so they can stay on his good side.
Yeah, and he is incredibly adept at conscripting people who aren't aware of it until it's too late. So there's a sequence where we actually meet Hunsaker for the first time, and he's actually holding court in a restaurant, and he's with a senator, and the senator is with a singer, and the singer's with a press agent, and apparently the press agent, or allegedly the press agent is toting around the singer. This lovely blonde singer, and this senator. It's kind of a weird threesome, and as the conversation moves on, you see just how savvy and smart Hunsaker is, and he says, maybe it's a mannerism because I don't threaten friends, Harvey, but why furnish your enemies with ammunition? You're a family man. Someday, with God willing, you may want to be president. Now, here you are, Harvey, out in the open, where any person knows that this one, and he points to the press agent, is toting that one, pointing to the model, around for you. Are we kids or what? And so here we have this opportunity for, you're not sure, as they're having this conversation, you're not sure who's in the power situation right here. This is a guy, he's a columnist for a paper, right? And right across the table from him is a senator, a politician who you would think, instantly the power would be balanced toward him. And yet through just these three little lines, that completely changes. And we're introduced to Hunsaker in a way that just sucks all the power to his end of the table. And it's just brilliant to watch him deliver this line. I am so moved by it. In the meantime, we have Falco sitting behind him, sort of in witness to all this, and he looks as small as he ever does, as Tony Curtis ever could in this film.
It's brilliant, and a lot of the flack for the film, which was a box office failure at the time, came aside from the fact that audiences had a really hard time back in '57 about watching a film with two despicable characters, and there's really no one to watch who's redeeming other than kind of the supporting characters. It was a hard film for people to watch, but Lancaster was his character, J.J. Hunsaker, was loosely based, quote unquote loosely, based on Walter Winchell, who at the time was one of the most notorious American newspaper and radio gossip commentators. He was exactly what JJ is in this film. He would write the paper just like this, and he was always gossiping. He had really kind of the first syndicated gossip column, and in it he was always exposing people, and he was really it's tabloid journalism, but he would attack people. He would use this place to get back at people if he didn't like them or they did something against him. In fact, he was and this is another thing that the film basically stole from Winchell's life. He was really enamored with his daughter, kind of more so than probably should be, and when his daughter expressed interest in this producer, he basically defamed this producer and destroyed his career.
Oh, that's smarts. That really smarts.
Yeah, and it's interesting how so few people registered that that's what was happening. People just kind of went along with it. And it took a few people to actually catch on, or to actually stand up and fight against him and say, no, this is what's happening here. And this film eventually came to be one where people saw what was happening, and that this was kind of a story of the type of person that Walter Winchell is, and kind of helped open people's eyes a little bit.
You mentioned something, and I'm gonna derail us a little bit. You talked about how people couldn't appreciate a film with two despicable characters, and some of the supporting characters were probably likable. And I think the film actually pulls off quite a coup in that regard. It leads us to believe that in particular, Susan's the character to watch, but I'm not sure she's all that likable either at the end.
I think that she's likable. I just think she is a weak character, and for that I find it interesting that that's how they portrayed her, especially in this story where it really comes across where JJ has a taste for his sister that is more than just brotherly. There's something about the way that he wants to care for her and always be there for her that just feels inappropriate, and it's a little hard to watch. And she is so put down by his control that I do find her pretty interesting. And by the end, I feel like there is some redemption in that she's able to stand up and kind of stand up and fight for herself. That's the only time I believe where we actually see her where she's not wearing her fur coat. When she walks out, she's wearing a very plain, ordinary coat, and she's going off to be with Steve, who has been arrested on pot charges and for being a communist. And she would rather be with him than be with JJ. And I thought there was redemption there. You didn't think so, though?
Well, no, it wasn't even so much about the redemption. I thought she was redeemed in her storyline, but at one point, after she and Sidney have their row, Sidney saves her from jumping, and then it comes back and Hunsaker comes in the room, and there is a sequence where Hunsaker comes in, and he gets a sense for what has been going on in that room that is not accurate. That's not what happened. And it's because Sidney put himself in a very difficult position. He had just saved her from jumping off of off of the balcony and killing herself. And in doing so, he brought her back in, put her on the bed, and then locked the door. So the door was locked. There was, when Hunsaker comes in, all he sees is Sidney in the room with his sister, and they're strewn all over the bed. The sister stands up, Susan stands up, and there's a 2-shot on Susan with Hunsaker in front of her. And you can tell in that moment she has the opportunity to clear it up. But she has now turned on Sidney as well. And their relationship all along has been, adversarial, but still they've known each other a long time. And there's a great sequence in the beginning. We have the hero photo on the website and in the podcast episode is the three of them, the poster of Steve in his jazz band with Sidney leaning up against the poster and then her standing in front of it. That's a wonderful little sequence where we see that they have kind of a contentious but almost more sibling kind of rivalry than she does with Hunsaker. And yet here we are in the end where she turns on Sidney. She's so exasperated by both of them that you can tell she's going to let Hunsaker loose without clearing up any misunderstanding.
Well, and not only that, but she, as we learn, is the one who actually called Sidney over.
Yeah.
She's the one who got him there under a false pretense that
right.
JJ actually wanted her to be there. And when Sidney understands that, he realizes that she has basically caught on to this entire situation and is now set out to destroy them both, or have them destroy each other, really.
Right. And so, I don't know, who would be the genuinely redemptive character in this thing? Would it be Steve? Is he the one we're supposed to really care about?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah?
I think Steve is very, very much a character that we're meant to care about, and who is redeemed in our eyes because he is the only one who ever stands up to JJ until the end when she finally does, and
right.
And seeing Susan actually take that stand, I think, may not have happened if she had not seen Steve do it before.
All right, we're in violent agreement.
Yes, there you go.
All right. Who else do we want to talk about now that we've solved all the problems of the world?
All the problems of the world solved just now. I love the way that Kello is Lieutenant Kello is written. Emile Meyer plays him. There's something that is so strange about him as a lieutenant. He's a corrupt lieutenant that basically also kind of does what JJ wants. And I find him fascinating to watch, especially when he says lines like, what's that line he says when Sidney is walking away? He's like, "Come back here, Sidney. I would like to chastise you." It's just like such a strange line of dialogue.
That's right. He does.
But somehow coming out of him in this film, it actually ends up feeling right. And I just really enjoy watching this guy because he just enjoys what he does way too much.
It's funny, like the way his mouth works.
Yes.
I think that's what I fixated on, his mouth, right? I get the peculiar impression, Snooks, that you don't like me. It's like his lips move in this very strange way that you look at them and it's like words should not be coming out of that. That's more like sausage should be coming out. Or something else.
Yes, and yes, I agree.
It is so good. I totally agree with you. Emile Meyer.
Mm-hmm.
He has his buddy, who we don't hear much from, but it is an interesting. He serves an interesting sort of relationship as a tool for Hunsaker, and we see him repeatedly coming in to beat people up and falsely arrest and very corrupt.
Yes, indeed. And then the other person that I wanted to bring up was Barbara Nichols, who plays Rita. I love this character in the film. She is a friend of Sid's, who is one of the two women who really kind of has a thing for him. And he is just awful to her. And I love the way that the scene is written when he basically gets her to, in order to basically get this other newsman to write this story to help JJ in his quest to bring down Steve. he gets her to sleep with this other guy, and it's just painful, and it breaks your heart as we watch her suffering this degradation by Falco, which is just, it's torturous to watch. But then the great twist at the end of that scene, which just I think is just so brilliant, because it basically tells you that because the other newsman keeps asking her, like, oh, where have I seen you before? Where did we meet? Was it at Niagara? And she's like, no, I've never seen you before. And she kind of keeps going until the very end, when he asks her again, and she's like, it was Palm Springs. And it's so great because it tells you she really is the sort who probably would just sleep around with somebody like this. But that's not what the point of the scene was. The point of the scene was that she had to suffer her friend and this guy who she really liked and wanted to be with actively making her do it. And that's what breaks your heart.
Yeah, truly. It's that moment of awareness that she has, and him really begging, because he knows that with her in play, if she does this, then the pieces of his sort of machine start to fall together. It's tough to watch.
It really is.
Yeah. But you're right. She is delightful. The other delightful character who I can't actually place. What was her name? It was Falco's assistant, his secretary.
Oh yeah.
She is just delightful. I really enjoyed watching her. She has that sort of dowdy kind of introvert character, really down. But I find her like the perfect match for Falco. It was just a great match. What was her name? Was that Mary?
I think it was Sally. I
Sally.
think that was Sally. Jeff Donnell.
Wait.
And actually, Mary, Edith Atwater, was JJ's secretary, right?
Right. That's right.
And
who was also great.
Who was also great. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know who we didn't talk about at all was Tony Curtis.
Yes, that's right. Well, he was next.
He was. Yeah. We're saving the best for last. Yes, Bernard Herschel Schwartz. Good old Tony Curtis.
Probably How do you get there from there.
I don't know. That's one of the ones where the guy at the studio is just like, no one's going to go with Bernard Schwartz. We'll call you Tony Curtis. Right. Like, okay, sign me up. You've already said it. I mean, he's just brilliant in this film. He's so dark, and he, at this point in his career, had been doing a lot of lighter stuff. And this was really a chance for him to kind of break out. He was hoping for something to give people a taste that he could do more, and that he could really carry a film in a way that was not what people expected. And playing such a villainous character was exactly what he wanted. Unfortunately, it wasn't what the audiences wanted, and they had a hard time.
Unfortunately, yes.
But thank God he did, because now we have it. I mean, this film has gone on to get ridiculous amounts of praise since then. Even if people didn't like it then, people have since realized that it is an amazing film, and it's amazing to watch these two dark characters as they dig themselves into the ground, so to speak.
When I had a career change, when I left broadcasting for a number of years, I went into public relations, and when I told my father that, my father had been in the television in business for 30 years. And when I told my father that, he sent me this movie. And we never talked about it. We never talked about it. It was just watch this movie. And that was it. So I'm not sure what the message is. I know what I want the message to be. But anyway, I'm not in PR anymore. Let's say that.
That is awesome.
Pretty good.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, good old Tony Curtis. He was around forever. He only just passed away 5 years ago.
129 credits.
Yep.
Whew. This was good.
Yes, indeed.
Anybody else on your hot list as we near the end?
We're
all backwards because we started with Crew.
I know, it's crazy. It's like, what are we doing? Wacky people.
So you already said it did not do well. Did you find any good numbers to keep us in line?
Yes, this film, which came out in 1957, cost $3.4 million to make, which is about $28 million in today's dollars. It made, I can only find domestic figures, $2.25 million, which is about $18.5 million. So it ended up being a box office loser. It ended up losing about $99,000 per finished minute. So it did very poorly at the box office, but like I said, it is one that stuck in people's memories, and as time wore on, its legacy has only grown. All these different publications, Sight and Sound, Empire, New York Times, Time, Entertainment Weekly, they all have it on their best movies of all time list, and it's a film that really sticks. And I mean, so good that in 2002, Marvin Hamlish, Craig Carnelia, and John Guare made Sweet Smell of Success the musical.
Oh man, it's a real sing-along.
A real chipper, uplifting one, huh?
Talk about an earworm.
I'd be curious to have seen that one and see how it played out.
No kidding.
Looks like...
yeah, I'm going to have to see if I can...
Looks like John Lithgow was in it.
Oh, John Lithgow. He's in everything. Let's rank it. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel, everybody, and you need to sign up if you're not already a member, because if you sign up, then you can start matching movies with us. And let's just see how A Sweet Smell of Success on our list ranks to your list. The global ranking of Sweet Smell of Success for this film is 156.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty high.
Pretty high. Let's do it.
All right, let's see where it ends on ours. Sweet Smell of Success or The Road Warrior?
Oh.
I'm doing Sweet Smell of Success.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? Sell it.
The characters are just fascinating to watch. Even though they're dark characters, I am riveted to the screen constantly as I watch this film. The dialogue is just constant acerbic dialogue, very witty, very funny, but very dangerous, and it just feels very edgy all the way through. And even though it doesn't have the violence like Road Warrior does, this film actually ends up feeling almost more violent to me.
Okay. I'm with you.
Did I sell it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Sweet Smell of Success or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
So I would do Sweet Smell of Success here.
Okay, now you sell it, because I want to go with Eternal Sunshine.
I find just watching this film is such a energetic and active experience, and Eternal Sunshine I find sometimes can be a little bit turgid. Even though I enjoy it, it's just I think I would put this one on first.
I'm going to go with you, and I think the reason is because of the subplots with Elijah Wood and Mark Ruffalo. I think, which I don't know if that really makes sense, but I enjoy so much the Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet bits that those other bits just feel like it slows it down a little bit for me. So I'll go Sweet Smell of Success.
So let's just replay what just happened there. Pete, sell it. Pete sells it. Andy says, okay, I'm going to go with you, but not for a single thing that you said.
No.
That was good. Let's replay that with some other matchups, because that was good. That's good.
I was saying yes, you, and.
Yes, and. I'll take it. All right.
Okay, Sweet Smell of Success or Fight Club. This is an interesting matchup between two films about two men going at it with each other.
I'm going to do Fight Club.
I knew you would. I'll go Fight Club. It's a tough call, though, for me. You're like, nah, not really. Sweet Smell of Success or The Descent?
Ooh. I'm going to say...
That one hasn't popped up in a while.
I want to say Sweet Smell.
I am, too. Sweet Smell of Success or Misery?
I'm going to have to go Sweet Smell.
Yeah, I will too. Sweet Smell of Success or Double Indemnity. Very noirish battle here.
I'm Sweet Smell of Success.
Boy. If I had voted on this before watching both of them recently, I probably would have picked Double Indemnity, but this time I actually do feel like I'm going to go Sweet Smell of Success.
I think you will too.
Although on this one, I don't know if it's going to be the same. Sweet Smell of Success or Ace in the Hole. I am going to go Ace in the Hole.
Oh, see, I had a feeling you would. I think I've got to go Sweet Smell.
Okay, are we going to have to rock, paper, scissors, water this one?
Are you, like, how firm are you on Ace in the Hole?
I'm pretty firm.
Pretty firm, like 8, 9, 10.
Yep.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Rock.
Scissors. First one.
It still, I think, is pretty good. Number
Yeah,
26 out of 188. I think that is a strong place for that film to land.
I think so, too. That feels pretty good. Where do we take it from here?
Next week, we're going to be finishing our wonderful black and white cinematography of James Wong Howe series with the trippy seconds. Little Frankenheimer action.
Nice. And we mentioned this one recently, right?
I feel like we've mentioned it off and on. I can't remember. Was there a specific reason we mentioned it?
This was a trailer. There was a trailer that came up that made you think of this movie. Right? It was the body switching thing.
It was, Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds, yeah.
And Gandhi, yes.
Yeah, and
yes.
Gandhi. If only they could have figured that out with Gandhi. Where would we be?
That would have been brilliant. Yes. It was that trailer, which does remind me quite a bit of Seconds.
If you like Gandhi, you'll love John Frankenheimer's Seconds. No, the guy, Gandhi. If you like the guy, Gandhi.
Oh, man.
All right.
Brilliant.
All right. Well, this one has a global ranking of 666.
Oh.
So, there you go.
There's a biblically interesting ranking for the film.
Right. I look forward to watching this one next week. Until then, Andrew, I'm going to bed.
All right, I smell something. What is that? Oh, look at that. There's some success in the other room. What a sweet smell.
You're a dope. I got one from Brian, Andy. Brian wrote to Amazon. He says, "Dear Amazon," except for he didn't say that. "I had the misfortune of seeing this film in the theater years ago. How I felt about it? Boring. Way too much. Yap, yap, yap. The Burt Lancaster part is based on Walter Winchell. Poor Walter. I don't think he was any saint, but I wouldn't confuse him with Satan either. Also in cast, Tony Curtis. I don't like this film at all. Burt and Tony made better ones." I read that one because Satan?
I also like the fact that he says also in cast Tony Curtis and then has nothing to say about Tony Curtis.
Yep. There we go.
Fantastic.
What do you got?
Well, I have a 1-star by Dick Phi Liu, who clearly has some problems with the dialogue. Here are a few memorable lines from this movie. Sidney, the brains may be Jersey City, but the clothes are Trainer Norell. Sidney, a press agent, eats a columnist's dirt and is expected to call it mana. Hunsucker, Sidney, conjugate me a verb. For instance, to promise. You promised to break up that romance. When? Oh, mercy, who wrote this tripe? I know the movie is supposedly film noir, and therefore its dialogue is excused as artsy rather than realistic. But can anyone really endure these pretentious lines with a straight face? Tried as I might to respect this movie's highfalutin aspiration, as I watched the movie, I kept laughing until tears rolled down my cheeks. And this was a movie in which its main character, Susie, interesting that he says Susie's the main character, was so tortured that she tried to commit suicide. Ironically, she was the only character who talked like a normal person. Maybe it was the long-suffering dialogues that pushed her over the edge. The plot is intriguing and the cinematography well-crafted. This could have been a good movie were it not for its hideous dialogues, but that's like saying that nuclear energy could have been a smashing success were it not for Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island. Wow.
Huh. I don't think it's like those things. I don't think that's an apt comparison.
It is a very, very strange comparison to bring up.
All right. Well, once again, Amazon, thank you for your contribution to cinematic culture. Andy, it is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
I love The Next Reel Season 4. Do you know why?
I don't. Why?
Because we got to talk about my favorite movie, Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
That's not even an adaptation.
No, but it was such a great part of our great Terry Gilliam series, and a few others in that series were adaptations, like The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, adapted from Raspi's stories, and La Jetée, which inspired 12 Monkeys.
Oh, right. And for our Man with No Name trilogy, we saw how Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars was basically stolen from Kurosawa's Yojimbo.
We added Labor Day to our Jason Reitman series, adapted from Joyce Maynard's novel.
Oof, there's one we'll always regret.
Our big Stephen King series covered adaptations like The Shining, Cujo, Christine, and Stand By Me, great horror and coming-of-age tales.
Another Coen Brothers adaptation, too. We got to talk about how they turned Homer's The Odyssey into Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
For our holiday series, we did The Bishop's Wife and The Poseidon Adventure.
And who could forget seeing Alec Guinness in the adaptation of Kind Hearts and Coronets during our series dedicated to him.
We really need to do more of his films.
Truly.
We had our first film noir series with classics like Double Indemnity, Detour, and Out of the Past.
And our black and white cinematography of James Wong Howe series with The Thin Man, Sweet Smell of Success, Seconds, and King's Row. So many adaptations.
Oh, you're not kidding. Dive deeper into these originals and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book you buy helps support our show.
Get the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and start reading today.